all these dating coaches and people on TikTok and Instagram and everything were saying like F the spark, and it doesn't matter if you have a spark or chemistry, just like keep going and keep trying and like go on 5-6 dates even when you don't feel anything. And I'm like, no, why are we gonna go on 5 or 6 dates with someone who we feel no physical connection with at all?
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Hey Babe, Can We Talk? With me, your host and bestie, Drea Renee. If this is your first time here, welcome. This is the place for those who just cannot seem to get it right when it comes to matters of the heart. And if you're returning, I missed you. I'm going to have a great episode. On today's episode, we have podcast host Carleigh Ferrante in the house with us today, and we're going to be talking about conversations to have before you lock in the relationship and green flags that your relationship is built to last. But before we get into that, make sure you guys hit that like, follow, subscribe, and comment down below because I'd love to hear from you. And without further ado, let's get into it with Carleigh Ferrante. Carleigh, thank you so much for joining us today. Super excited to have you on. You host the Mostly Dating podcast. Again, I love your stuff. I was super called to have you on because, you get it. We talk about all the dating stuff, and I think there is a lot of content out there, but not all of it's good. And you got some of the good stuff. So thank you for being here.
Thanks so much. And thank you for having me on. I'm excited. Even from the last conversation we had, we just clicked automatically. So I think we're going to have a good time.
I'm talking to my girlfriend about dating,
Yeah.
And I'm super excited to talk about, what we are going to be focusing on today, which are conversations that you should have before you lock in a relationship. And this is something that I was not good at. I really just focused on appearance and maybe a text back. And then also just thought, if he likes me, I don't really need to think about if I like them. I'm like, great. Okay, cool. That's it. So I want to get into, talking about, why do people get so scared to have these conversations in the beginning and they just skip over them and they don't want to have them? It's not the vibe,
Yeah, and I talk about that a lot too, and trust me, I've definitely been there. I've been in relationships where it's like, oh, he's hot, and like we have a vibe and chemistry, and that's it. But it is so important to have those conversations early on, and I think that one of the biggest reasons why people avoid them so much, at least from what I see and all of the people that I talk to, and again, in my own experience, is just like a fear of not knowing what's going to happen. So in a lot of cases, it's a fear of thinking it's going to be a bad reaction. But even if you're not consciously thinking that it's going to be bad, we just have this like innate fear of not knowing the outcome of something. So it's like, even if you're at work and you want to ask for a raise or you want to talk, like having these conversations where you don't know how it's going to end up and there might be a chance of being rejected, which like can feel like the end of the world, then it just becomes easier to completely avoid it. But that ends up either you never get your answer or you just prolong things for so long and you stay in a relationship that isn't meant for you.
Right. And then you forget it's not about like, just do we like each other? It's like, can we actually do our lives together?
Yes.
Like nobody wants to think about that. I mean, I really just couldn't get past a certain point many times because I was stuck in the anxious attachment loop of, does he like me? He hasn't called. What does the text mean? So I never even got to think about, which I should have, had these conversations early on. What does a relationship even look like to you? What are you looking for? Right? Like some of these really important things. And then we get so blinded by the chemistry, it like pulls us in. And then I'm like, compatibility? What's that?
Yeah, exactly. And the chemistry, like, it pulls us in because it feels really good. And it's like, and of course, everyone knows now, like, there's so much more talk now about how, like, the spark isn't the number one thing. And, like, sometimes the spark isn't even a good sign. And it could be anxiety and all of those things. But still, like, every movie, TV show, book you read, you're going to be reading or watching this like spark and intense chemistry, and that's what's always going to be glamorized. And so we're always going to be searching for that, especially if you've felt it before. Like if you've been in relationships where there's really intense chemistry or really intense spark, that's what you're going to be looking for. So that becomes like the number one priority. And either you don't feel it at all, so you just don't go on another date with them when there could have been a good connection if you had explored it, or like you feel it super intensely that you ignore the fact that you're not compatible at all.
Yeah. What do you think about this idea that the spark could mean something negatively? So I've struggled with that because I feel I don't have a great sample size, right? I think in my history currently, if there has been this like, I was just talking about this with my mom the other day, if there has been this like crazy, like, oh my God, it's usually not worked out well for me. I
Yeah.
haven't been able to sort of manage myself. It's all consuming. And then I lose myself in this thought. And so I'm thinking, is that the case? Does that necessarily mean it's bad? You know what I mean? What do you think about that, Carleigh?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I think that people almost went too far in the other direction at some point there, where all these dating coaches and people on TikTok and Instagram and everything were saying like F the spark, and it doesn't matter if you have a spark or chemistry, just like keep going and keep trying and like go on 5, 6 dates even when you don't feel anything. And I'm like, no, why are we gonna go on 5 or 6 dates with someone who we feel no chemistry, like no physical connection with at all?
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think there has to
Exactly.
be an in between. I always say like my goalpost or my like measurement for these things is if you're
Hmm.
still curious about them in some way, because like attraction doesn't mean, or it doesn't have to mean like, oh my God, I think they're so hot and like I want to hook up with them immediately. It can be like, oh, I'm attracted to their vibe, or I'm, if there's something about them that's like keeping me curious, then continue going out with them. But if it's like I can't picture ever being remotely attracted to them, but like they're good on paper and they have a good job, like, and this dating coach tells me I should try again. Like, don't try again. Like, you have to feel something.
Exactly. You do have
Yeah.
to feel something. I so agree with you because I definitely at one point got lost in that and would go on second, third, fourth dates with people
Yeah.
when that feeling was like, Drea, what do you don't like this guy? Like,
Yeah.
and I'm like, well, he would be a good partner.
Right.
So, I mean, what's attraction anyway, right?
Yeah, and it's really important, at least to me. Like, I feel like it is so important. So it's like, I always say that the spark, yes, it definitely can grow and it should grow, but it needs to grow from something. It's not just gonna like poof from thin air when you don't feel anything on those early dates. So you have to feel something, but like, I guess challenge yourself to like not be so tied to a type or not have this vision in your head of exactly what it's gonna feel like. If you feel some sort of attraction to something about them, then continue to explore it until you know, like, no, I don't feel it at all, and then don't. Like, there's so
Right.
many people out there. You don't have to settle for something just because they're good on paper.
I know. And then there's this danger of thinking, I'll figure it out later, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're like, well, I'm getting this little flicker, and they aren't good ones, but you're like, it's okay. I'll figure it out later. And it's like, why do people do that? And I
Yeah.
think really it's around scarcity because dating, it's not always the easiest thing, especially as you get older and the amount of options that we have available to us. I want to talk a little bit about that too and what that does to your mind when you are, being discerning and sifting through people. How do you think that affects things?
Yeah, I mean, I always say I don't want to like like, I'm not going to pretend that there aren't less options as you get older. Like, there obviously are. There's less options because
Yep.
people are getting married, people are settling down, but when you stop and think about it, there still are a lot of options. Like, you have enough options that you can find someone, no matter if you're dating in a small town, a big city, like, if you have kids and you're afraid that like it's going to make it harder for you to date because somebody might not want to date someone with kids, like everyone has their things about them that's going to make certain people not want to date them. But like that's a good thing because you're going to weed out the people that you're not meant to be with. Like I, for one, like when I was out there dating, like I'm sure there were a lot of people out there that didn't want to date someone who had a dating podcast. Like that's just something about
Girl,
me that's going to weed people out.
ain't that the truth? But I mean, literally, when people I would have guys sort of be mean about it sometimes, or a
Mm,
little bit curious and cautious. I remember this one
yes.
guy was like, "Oh, that's interesting. You have a dating podcast and you're on a dating app." And I thought, what is the problem here? But he was
Yeah.
like, "How can you teach people about dating if you're not?" And I'm, buddy,
Hmm.
relax,
Well,
okay?
you can't win because people will be like, oh, you're single. Why should I listen to your dating advice? And then it's like, well, you're in a relationship. You have no idea what it's like out here dating right now. It's like, I mean, I think if you've dated before, if you've been in a relationship before, you can give advice on that.
Yes,
Like,
you have some, merit to say, like, yeah, I
yeah.
did that, and now I'm on the apps because I would like to find a partner, and I never leave my house really, so that's why I'm on
Yeah.
here.
But no, I do fully validate that like it can feel sometimes like I've definitely been there before. Like I have been like on the apps and thought like, "Oh my gosh, there's like nobody on here who I would want to date." Obviously, all the good ones are taken and all this stuff, and like that was a big thing for me when I was dating before I got into my relationship that I'm in now. Is like I had this kind of like switch go off in my head that I'm like, well, I mean, I'm single and I'm on this app and like I feel like I'm pretty cool and normal, so there must be other people out there, and you have to kind of just like approach it with a positive mindset, even though like that's not always going to be easy. Just as much as you can come back to the fact that like there are people out there, and as long as you're like living the life that you like to live and doing the things you like to do and like going on the apps and whatever, you're going to come across people that you'll connect with.
Yes, it is. And I really like what you said about the having a positive mindset, because listen, if you chat with a few people, it is easy at times to get in a negative headspace really quickly because you're thinking, what in the hell are they talking about?
Yes.
But you just have to keep going, and remember, you're dating. It should be fun, and it's going to be exhausting at times, but I do think the mindset matters. And if you're going on a date already rolling your eyes, you're not really being open, and you can miss a lot of things when you kind of go in shut down like that, right?
Yeah.
But one of the things I want to get into now is, what are the important conversations to have? You think, what are some of the specific things to bring up and talk about before you are locking it down with somebody to be like, is this the person for me?
Yeah, there's so many, and it's funny because when I'll share them either on my podcast or on my Instagram, people are like, oh my gosh, what is this, like a job interview? Like they think they have to pull out a list and like check them off and ask them on one date. And I'm like, on one hand, yes, dating actually is a lot like interviewing for a job, and like I will die on that hill. But on the other hand, like, no, you don't have to pull it out and like have this checklist of conversations. A lot of these conversations will come up naturally if you're like going on different types of dates. And I'm a big proponent of that too, like making sure you're doing different types of things together and getting in different environments. And that's going to spark a lot of conversations. But some things, like the obvious ones, like what are their intentions? What are they looking for? What are you looking for? Like the easiest way, I think, to find out what someone is looking for is to share what you're looking for. And I think talking about that really early on just sets that expectation, like almost with less pressure. Like if I'm on a second date with someone and I say like, I'm dating because I really want a long-term relationship, that's like feels like a lot more light and like easy to say, because it's like, it's kind of like general. I just met them, so I'm obviously not saying I need that with them. I'm just telling them that's where I'm at. But if you've been on like 6 or 7 dates with somebody and then you're like, I want a serious relationship, you're obviously talking about with them. So I just think like the earlier you can set the stage for like the intentions and what you're looking for, the better.
Yeah, and that leads me to my next question, which was, how early is too early? But, in my experience, I'm right out the gate, because honestly, Carleigh, I'd like to do a little FaceTime before. And I always like to see their reaction, when I was dating, to say, I am looking for a long-term relationship, because that right there before we meet, in my opinion, can weed out so many people, because they're like, oh, okay, well, she wants like a boyfriend. So, or they're like, or they're game and they understand it and get what's going on. But, there are men who are very clearly, men or women, whatever you're into, that are like, nah, I just kind of want to hang out and see what happens, which is the phrase I want to, that doesn't work for me.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So I do think like the earlier the better for that conversation and just for getting that out there. And that's going to be like an ongoing conversation, because like eventually you will want to talk about like what you got, where your relationship is going. But I think the sooner you can say what just like I individually am looking for, the better. And then other conversations before like locking it in. Like I have multiple posts on conversations to have before defining the relationship, so I feel like I could talk about this like for the whole episode. Please, but like things like past relationships I think are so important to talk about early on. And I don't think you need every single detail, but you're kind of listening for I love the details. But some people like don't want the details, so I feel like you have to kind of like go like tread lightly there and just kind of like at the very least, like cover the highlights and like listen for patterns they have in past relationships, and listen for like the way they talk about their exes and like the self-awareness they have, and like those types of things I think are so important. Talking about your values and talking about like your lifestyle, talking about your deal breakers I think is huge. Boundaries, like things like how much alone time you like your own life, your other priorities, like all of these things are, again, topics that should just come up naturally. But if you're getting to the point of wanting to like define the relationship and kind of like lock it in, like you said, and you realize, oh, I actually have no idea, like if they have deal breakers or what their boundaries are, or I don't really know what their values are, like even what mine are. Like these are things that you're going to want to get clear on before you like go to that next step, in my opinion.
Yeah, because the thing is, you end up getting stuck if you don't ask, and then you've already got feelings for the person, and now you're attached, and then you're like, wait, you don't want kids?
Yeah.
Wait, I'm sorry, what? I didn't. And this is why I wanted to really have this conversation. And for those listening, it's like you gotta ask. It's like, even if the guy is hot, or they make a lot of money, or the girl is hot, or whatever, it's like these things are who they are. And so getting clear on their values and their beliefs, if you are looking for a long-term relationship. And sometimes people have non-negotiables that they are not going to change. And so you need to know, do you want children? Where do you want to live? What are your religious or non-religious beliefs? But people, like, they're like, oh, I'll just do it later. She's cute.
Yeah, and like we said in the beginning, it's so easy to avoid those conversations, especially if you're having fun together and you feel like you're really clicking and everything is aligned, and then you're thinking in the back of your head like, "Oh, I'm 35 and I want to have kids and I haven't brought it up yet." And like you don't want to waste your time with somebody, but you also don't want to rock the boat because you're like, "Oh, we'll get there eventually." But you have to have those conversations and you have to figure it out, because otherwise you'll just get stuck in a relationship with someone who like you're not going to be meant to be with, and like you're just going to waste more time.
Because it does come up. And I think it's like, I know for me, I was always thinking I was asking for too much. Right. I didn't like, maybe we met and we're having a great time, and I'm thinking, I'm going to mess up the vibe if I ask him about X, Y, and Z. Like, what, do you know what I'm saying? Like, I
Yeah.
think we get really caught up in that and kind of being like, I'm doing too much right now.
Yeah. No, especially, I think women, especially like women who are dating men, I feel like that we're kind of just like conditioned to feel like, okay, let's just go with the flow and like don't want to stress anyone out, or like this will all get figured out. And especially like it's not always like intentional. Like I feel like a lot of times it does feel like we are so aligned. Everything is so great. You're like, of course they're going to want kids, and of course they're going to want the same things I want. Like we're so on the same page. Like, so you just kind of like assume, and then don't bring things up. And truly, the earlier you can start, like just practicing, even like bringing something up, whether it's something bothered you and you're afraid to tell them it bothered you, or it's something like that you want for the future and you're afraid that they won't be aligned. Like if you can do that early, it's going to be so much easier for the rest of your relationship. But if you just kind of go with the flow, and then like maybe you do like align on everything, and then you get married, and then even you have kids, and then you don't like align on how you're raising your kids, and you're like, oh my God, I've literally never voiced anything like this to them before. It's going to feel so foreign. Like you have to kind of build that skill, the communication skill, and the earlier you can do that, the better.
Yeah, because alignment versus the attraction, these are two different things. And I don't think that people realize that having that attraction can be so blinding in so many ways. It excuses so many things. I always make the joke, you can have the same two men or same two people say the same thing to you, and one person is kind of creepy, the other person's, you're like, well, I mean, that was kind of weird, but whatever, it's okay.
Yeah.
And I can just get on with it because you're overwhelmed. And honestly, sometimes when I've been at a 10 attracted to someone, I'm like, I don't know if this is manageable. Sometimes,
Yeah.
because, like I just kind of know myself at, especially when I was younger, and I wasn't really thinking about these other things, because I think we forget that like, we're not going to be young forever. Like you got to be old hopefully with somebody, like
Yeah.
you get to.
Yeah, and like over time, again, you'll become attracted to them because of different things and not just how they look. And I think the physical part is really important for a lot of people, myself included. But it's not something you can build a relationship on. You can only build a relationship on compatibility and on like being aligned in all these areas, and on good communication. Good communication is definitely the heart of building a good relationship.
Absolutely. And some of the other things to kind of focus in on, especially in these early stages, is, you got to see people when they are not well, or like in a stressful situation. I don't mean not well sick. I just mean like, maybe the waiter's taking too long, or somebody lost some luggage. I know for me, the lost luggage thing, knock on wood, please don't let that happen. I don't do well I don't do well.
Yeah.
That's not Drea's most shining moment, which I
Mm-hmm.
admit, but seeing people in situations where it's high stress is also important. And you can ask somebody too if they are self-aware, how do you show up in these situations, right?
Yeah. And I think that that's such a funny one because I say that too. I think it's so important to see how someone reacts when things don't go perfectly or when something like I don't know, something unexpected happens. And it's like you don't want to test them and like set up this whole thing where they're going to have this unexpected situation. But
Right.
hopefully again, if you're doing different types of things together, even like that's why I'm such a big fan of going on like activity dates and doing dates that are outside of your comfort zone and
Yes.
stuff like that, because you'll see them even on like the smallest scale of this is like if they lose at something or they're not good at something, just the way that they handle it, I think is so important to see. And it can teach you a lot about someone, just like seeing them in their natural environment is another big thing that I think is so important. I always tell the story on my podcast about how that was like one of the times when like one in the early days in my relationship where I knew it was going to be serious and I knew I really liked him and I knew that we were a good match was like on a random day when we both were just working from his apartment, and it was like the first time that we were kind of just hanging out for the whole day and like working from home in the same space, and it was like I was seeing him in his environment and it was just not like a planned date, and it was cool to see that like, oh, we actually do align in this unplanned environment, and I think that's so important.
Very important because we have that phase of the sparks, we're dating, we're in our own, apartments and things like that. But then there's that other phase where, those things kind of balance down a little bit where you're like,
Yeah.
okay, we're together, we like each other. Now let's see what we look like in life. And so I
Mm-hmm.
feel like we were saying before, people start to have those more serious conversations around then. Maybe
Yes.
after you've been intimate, you're excited about each other, you can go on some of these dates. And another thing I want my listeners to remember is like anybody can act great for a few weeks, you
Mm-hmm.
know you can put it on, but I'm like, I
Yeah.
need to see you at home. Let me hear you talking to your mom. Let me see you talking to your friend. Let me meet your friends as well, you
Yeah, oh,
know
1,000%. Meeting the friends, like meeting the important people in their life is so important. I would do that every time. I would do that before defining the relationship. Like I would tell anyone to do that for sure because that's going to teach you so much about them, the way that they are around their friends, the way they are around your friends, just the way their friends talk about them. You'll just even now I've been with my boyfriend for 3 years, and when we go hang out with his friends, I feel like, oh, I'm seeing a different side of him or I'm learning something new about him, and I'm sure him too when he's around me and my friends or my family or things like that, because it's like these people know them in like a different way. And like to your point, you could always put on an act in those early days of dating. So the sooner you can see them in environments around people who like really truly know them, that the better. That's going to teach you a lot.
and can we talk about like who their friends are and how
Yes.
important that is too,
Yeah,
right?
that's
Like, have
so
you ever been in a
telling.
situation where you're like, oh, no, 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 this isn't gonna work for me?
Definitely, but it's funny because looking back, it's like, why was I even surprised? Because like it's kind of like it's an exact example of what we're saying. Because it's like that now knowing that person, I'm like, oh, of course that's who their friends were. But like the version of them that I knew when it was just us and like our bubble going on dates, you wouldn't have
Hmm.
expected that. But then you see them and you're like, oh, this is who they are, and like everything kind of
Exactly.
clicks. And sometimes it clicks in a really good way. Like I always say, even early on if people are having trouble, like, oh, I really like him a lot, but I can't tell if like the chemistry is there, I'm not really
Mm.
sure. See them in another environment, like see them around their friends, and sometimes that you're like, oh wow, I'm like even more attracted to them after seeing the way like they're so good around their friends, or their friends love them, or they kind of come out of their shell, and you could see them in a different light. It really like puts a different light on things that can be so helpful.
Absolutely. That's why it's like when you meet someone, and sometimes we can be too quick to sort of make these decisions. If like you said, if you're still kind of sussing it out and seeing what's going on with the person. And I've actually had that exact experience where I saw someone with their friends and then with their family. And I was like, oh, okay, like
Yeah.
we were still getting to know each other, so this like level we hadn't really tapped into yet. But the
Mm-hmm.
way he showed up and sort of the hat that he wore with his friends, I was like, oh, okay, well, that's kind of sexy. I didn't
Yes,
know he was like, you
exactly.
know
It's kind of like, I feel like during COVID, I heard all these stories of people who suddenly had to work from home with their like partner, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, husband, wife, and either they were like really getting the ick on the like
I
about the way that their husband was
know.
like talking on a work call or something, or they were like, oh wow, that's really hot, like he's really good at his job and the way he talks to his clients and whatever. Like I think it's just so funny, or it's like so interesting seeing you like just getting a perspective into a different area of their life that you're not usually a part of or that you haven't been a part of yet in the case of early dating.
Right. COVID was such an interesting time. I think we all did things that maybe, we wouldn't have normally done. I definitely got back with my ex and moved in with him.
You
And
did?
girl, I
Oh
did. I will
wow.
never forget the day he called me. It was like the second day. It's all on the news. Everything's going crazy. And he's like, do you want to come over and hunker down with me? And I
Oh
go,
my, wait, how long had you been broken up for?
we'd been maybe like a month or something, and we'd been
Okay.
like texting a little bit here and there.
Uh-huh.
You know how that always goes. It wasn't like out of the blue, but it
Mm-hmm.
was one of those things where I latched on to the reason to reconnect,
Right.
because I was like, this is done, it's over, I'm doing my thing. And then all of a sudden we couldn't leave, and then I was like, well, I don't want to hunker down by myself.
Yeah. No, I totally get. I think that happened to so many people that either like relationships quickly ended or people that got back together when they shouldn't have and things like that.
Yeah, or people met on dating apps and went on
Yes.
dates to people's homes and started relationships really quickly. And
Mm-hmm.
then once COVID was over and people got back to their normal lives outside world, they also discovered a different thing where they're like, oh my God, this, because you're not, some people weren't naturally homebodies. We had to stay at home. So then you create this whole persona in
Yes.
your home or in your, and you're not doing anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a weird time.
That was a very weird time, honey. Yeah, that was very strange for me. And I didn't have any of these conversations with that guy. It was
Yes.
like, he's cute. He seems a little edgy. I love you.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
the
that was it.
conversations can change everything. They seriously can. I think it's like a hack for dating to not waste your time and to like and even to turn something that might not have like you might not have explored further into a relationship.
Yeah, I think it's important to really be open. Again, if you are in this space, because I think a lot of people are guarded right now when dating. They want to keep their cards close to their chest. And I think if we just continue with this energy and everyone's doing that, I don't know where or how people date now all the time.
Yeah.
Because you know what I mean? Everyone's very like, well, I'm not calling them. Well, I'm not going to
Yeah.
tell them I like them. And it's like, well, what are we doing?
I know, and that's kind of what I was trying to get at earlier. Is like rejection isn't the worst thing in the entire world. It's actually like
Mm,
it's something that we all have to do in order to get to where we want to be, and not just in dating and like our career and any area of your life. Like not everything is going to work out, and if everything worked out, then like you would never find the actual right thing for you. So like I know there's all the rejection is redirection and all those things, and like I fully believe that, but rejection also just can be like obviously you don't want to be like getting rejected left and right, but like people aren't even approaching someone in real life because they're afraid they might say like, oh sorry, I have a boyfriend or something like that. And like why is that so terrible? Like if that happens, like
right.
if you go out and talk to someone and they say they have a boyfriend or they have a girlfriend or they're like just like they kind of blow you off, like yeah, it's gonna feel like uncomfortable and
It might
annoying in the
sting a little
moment.
bit, but you'll
Yeah,
be
it'll
all right.
sting, but like 2 days later you're gonna forget it even happened, and then you're gonna like be more likely to go up to someone else in the future because you'll realize like that actually wasn't terrible and I lived through it, and then like eventually it'll kind of just like it won't feel as scary anymore. And it's the same thing with these types of conversations. But I'm such a big like proponent of anybody just like being more social when they're out in their day-to-day life. Like you're at a coffee shop, you're ordering coffee, like I don't know, make some small talk with the person who's making it or the person behind you in line. Even if it's not someone you want to date, that's just going to put out the vibes that you want to meet someone new, and like tell the universe that like you're open to making connections, and then you're going to have more people approaching you. But if you're just like headphones on everywhere you go, like straight face, not talking to anybody, then like of course nobody's going to approach anybody.
And we are in this world where people would rather message somebody on Instagram sitting next to them or across from them than just be like, hey, how's it going? But you're right.
Yeah.
Doing these things just to practice, like talking to your barista, maybe. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Like we
Yeah, but
can
then it's
talk
funny
to
because
each other.
yeah, and then people complain that like dating apps are so terrible, and it's like But if you're not doing anything else outside in your regular day-to-day life, you're literally never going to meet someone if you're not either using the apps or going. And like, I actually think like, I like to think of the apps as like a tool that you can use. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be the way that you find somebody, but it's nice to know that you have it on your phone. You can do some swiping each day, and there's all these people on there that you might not have a chance to meet if you're not on there. But everyday life, you could be out there being social, doing the things you want to do, and like chatting with people and just kind of like going about life in an outgoing social way. And then you might meet someone there, but like both of those things are just putting like the right vibe out there. And then together, that's going to make you a lot more likely to meet someone than just like either sitting at home being frustrated about the apps and just like doing it out of annoyance, or just not doing anything at all.
I definitely angry swiped at a time.
Yeah, me too. For sure.
And then I'm like, who am I going to meet right now universally putting this kind of energy out? Probably no one good, because I'm so angry. But,
Yeah.
you know, speaking of being social and going up to people, this leads to our next topic of green flags, you know, to look for in your partner and signs that your relationship is going to work. I like when men are confident in that way. You know, that's always a green flag for me, not in an arrogant, you know, egotistical way, but when a guy goes up to a group of women and he's respectful, major green flag. Even if he gets rejected and he's still nice, bigger green flag. And then my brain's always like, well, come back.
Yeah.
What? Hold on a second.
Yeah. No, I love that too. I think it's like, and like for women, if you also want, you can go up and talk to people. But I also just feel like,
Yeah,
if you're the kind of person that wants to be approached, which like I would prefer that versus like being out there approaching people left and right. Like I don't know, maybe I'm just like, just like old school.
We might
like
be
that.
old school these
Yeah.
days, girl.
But like
you know.
you can smile more, and you can just be kind of make yourself a little bit more approachable. And then for men who are going and approaching people, like, it doesn't have to be this, you don't have to walk up to them and like confess your love for them. Like, just go up to them and ask them a question, ask their like advice on what to order from the menu, or tell them you like their like shirt. I don't know, like say just like
Whatever,
simple
anything.
thing to say to start the conversation. And then if they're not giving you any interest back, then walk away. But if they are, then you can start the conversation like that. I feel like a lot of people forgot how to start conversations.
Girl, everyone's like a deer in headlights. And then if you say, oh, he came up and talked to me, the shock on people's faces, like he in real life. Like
Yeah.
like he walked over to you, and it's like, yeah, in real
But
life.
then,
You know?
yeah. And then the other thing about it is that then
funny.
when it does happen, people put that person like on a pedestal, and they're like, this is going to be my husband. He approached me in real life. And it becomes this like big thing where like you're even more into them because you met in real life. And like, I don't want that. Like, I feel like there's like, that's an extreme of it. But it also is like nice for the guy to know that like if they're doing that, the person's probably, if they're into it, they're going to be like, they're going to respect it even more. And like you said, they're going to find it attractive that you came up to them. And it's like,
Yes.
you can meet someone on your phone if you want to, or you can meet them in real life. I've heard it compared to like Uber. Like, you can have Uber on your phone and you know that you can get a car, but you also could go outside and like hail a cab, and there's probably going to be one out there too. So it's like just that like nice to have.
I think it's just such a testament to where dating is right now, where that value on someone coming up to you in real life is so high.
Yes.
Right? Like our standards and bars are so low, where it's like, he came and spoke to me in person, and everyone's like, oh my God, you know?
Yeah,
But back in the day,
exactly.
it's like bare minimum, guys, like not a big deal. Or somebody just texts you back, opens your car door. Everyone's like, that's my husband. And it's
Yeah.
like, hold on.
No, the
Hold on.
bare minimum is like a big thing. Like, I think it's like, it's kind of, it all ties back to what we were saying earlier. It's like, you don't feel anything, but like they're good on paper. It's like, a lot of people are good on paper, or like, I don't feel anything, but like they're so nice to me. And like someone being nice to you, yeah, that's like a must have, but it's the bare minimum must have. Like, there's so much more that you should be looking for in a partner than them just being nice.
I mean, this opens up another door, the bare minimum, you know, in parallel with the green flags, because some of the green flags that I have, you know, in my mind of things that I look for in a partner, sometimes I'm thinking, is the bar too low?
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, calls me back.
Yeah.
It's like, well, yeah, I mean, he should do that, Drea, just starting point, you know?
Yeah. Well, when you said like green flags that often go overlooked, and I think that that's a really interesting topic, because there's so many that people might even see as a potential red flag that I think are fully green flags. Like one we were talking about earlier, like not having a huge spark or being like having like the craziest chemistry early on, like that might be a green flag. Like if you feel some chemistry, but it's moving a little slower than usual, I think that actually is potentially a green flag. And things like if they aren't always available, like they don't cancel plans to be with you, like that's a green flag. That means they're holding up to commitments with other people and they have their own life outside of you. Like, and then they're not going to cancel on you in the future. You know what I mean? Like, I think I've seen people that are like, well, I asked her to go out to drinks like next week and she said she already had plans. Like she's obviously not interested. And I'm like, no, she's just keeping up with her own life and her own commitments, which like you will appreciate when you're together because she's going to do that for you too. So I think it's like people expect that, like, again, this like fairy tale romance of like crazy spark and we drop everything for each other. And I don't actually think that's a good thing. I think it's a green flag if like you have some chemistry and you're building it like in a normal like trajectory and you're also keeping up with your own life outside of each other.
Oh my God, I love that. You're so right because some things were coming up for me in the past where I was in full fantasy of everything. I'm like, we went on a date, so your whole life needs to change right now.
Yeah.
And why, you know what I mean? And it's like, oh, I have plans with my friends. I'm like, he hates me. So I guess
Yeah.
just, it's over. But it's like, it does matter because the integrity that they have with other people in their lives, because if you are with somebody, you aren't going to be the only person in their life. They do still should keep their commitments. And this is something you're right that we overlook is how do they show up to others? Do their words match their actions, not just for you, but just for everybody in their life, because it will balance out and that spark won't be there for you all the time. And then it'll be like, oh, we have a date on Saturday at 7. And you'll be like, I know for sure he will be there at 7.
Yeah, exactly. And it goes both ways. Like, you shouldn't be canceling on your friends just to see someone because you guys have a great connection and you're excited about them. Like, I do think early on in a relationship, like, you can get in your bubble and that can be fun. And, like, you probably maybe won't see your friends as much for a few weeks or whatever in the beginning because you're so excited. But you shouldn't be canceling other stuff. You shouldn't be, like, skipping all your self-care and all your other stuff. Like, I think that that's so important to keep up with because that's what like makes you into the person that actually like attracted this person, and you want to continue your individual lives like outside of the relationship. And even things like disagreeing about things early on, I think can be a green flag. Like if I said something on an early date and my boyfriend like completely had a different perspective, he fully would have been like, oh, well, I actually think XYZ, and then we would have talked it out and like heard each other's perspectives on it. Whereas like I also know couples who it's like, oh my God, I totally agree, and like, oh, I love that too, and like it just everything is like yes, me too, and you're not again building the skills to be able to like voice a difference of opinion or even like grow from each other if you have like different perspectives.
I love that's so true because definitely was a yes girl in my past.
Me too.
Said yes to everything. Got myself in some bad situations with which my listeners know, which involved me at a beach surfing and I can't swim and dying for love. You know what I mean? Yeah, girl. I just said yes. He was so cute. I was like, yeah. Then all of a sudden I'm at the beach and I'm like, I can't swim and I have extensions. So this isn't really going to work out for me, you know? But it's like, yes, being able, and that's one of the important foundations of a relationship is being able to disagree and not thinking it's going to break down, everything. And just for me, when somebody disagrees with me, especially like early stages, I find this like a piece of integrity for this person where they're like, I'm not just going to agree with you because I like you. Like, this is what I feel about this. And unless it's like something values based, then you could have a different thought for yourself. But if it's just something where I'm like, wow, okay, maybe you hear a new perspective from this person. But that's a really good one, a green flag that definitely I think gets overlooked early on. Because I think sometimes people could see that as like, oh, well, we don't agree on everything. This isn't my person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right? I totally agree. And one thing that you said earlier that kind of sparked something else in my head when we were talking about them not always being available and things like that. There's a question that I always like to ask on early dates when you haven't like met the people in their life yet. I always like to ask who are like the 2 to 3 most important people in your life and like why, and try to learn more about that, because I think that before you meet those people in their life, it can be so telling to hear like that they actually have close relationships with other people is a huge sign of just being like emotionally available, and then hearing like why they like those people and why they're so close with them, because that will tell you a lot about if your values align, if you're compatible in general, and then you'll like you'll kind of probably start to like hear about those other people more, and maybe they'll have plans with them so they can't see you and stuff. And like just learning about the important people in their life is like really, really interesting early on in dating. So I always suggest asking that question.
That's such a good question because I think it's a self-awareness thing too, that they even know and have
Right.
an answer. And if they're giving you these like nice, meaty answers, I just think that says something about the person. Cause I've definitely had conversations with men where, look, we're in the work, we do this all the time. So I always give a little bit of grace that not everybody's having these I'm like, where, what tools do you use? Like, and
Yeah.
they're like, whoa, what the hell? This is conversation number 2, Drea. But, you still get an idea when you just ask some basic questions like, oh, who are some important people in your life and things like that. And people that can give you these nice, meaty answers versus like, I don't know.
Yeah.
You're like, okay,
And some
okay.
of these questions, like they, again, like I think people just need to like learn how to have conversations better because again, I
Right?
always get that feedback of like, but it's not a job interview, and it's like it doesn't have to be. Like I have a twin sister and her and I are texting like all day every day. So if I was on an early date and my phone was like buzzing, I would probably say something like, "Sorry, I have a twin sister, like we're literally in constant communication. Like, do you have anyone like that? Like, who do you talk to the most?" And like, you can just have a conversation and weave in a question. It doesn't have to be like, "So, who are the most important people in your life?"
I
Like,
know.
it
You're
can
like,
come up
1 second.
naturally.
Exactly. And I love what you said earlier, sort of, you know, prepping what you want to know by saying what you have going on for
Yes.
yourself. Like, hey, yeah, I'm just looking for a long-term relationship right now. I would like to have a kid, whatever, in a year, whatever it is. And for me, look, specifically, like I never cared about saying these things early on. I'm at a certain age where I'm like, listen, what's up? Do you want this? Yes or no?
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's not, again, I know how to have a conversation with people. I talk to people, but even these people that are on these dating apps, they don't always want to have conversations. Everybody's just like very scared, or they want to meet very quickly. They have different intentions, and there isn't a lot of conversation. Some people just want to jump to intimacy, and that's not the situation going on here. I want to know your values, your beliefs, and what's going on with you. Really.
Yeah, and for I feel like jumping to physical intimacy, what I've seen then, it just rushes it creates this sense of like false emotional intimacy, and then it clouds your judgment, and then you think you're so much closer than you are, and even though you haven't had these conversations, you're like, well, it's great. We're connecting and things are moving forward, but it's not if you're not communicating about these big things.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, there's just, God, you've said so many nuggets today, Carleigh. Like
So have
so
you.
many nuggets. Yeah. No, thank you. Thank you. I mean, I love these conversations because, first of all, they just help strengthen my own views in my relationship personally, just getting like a crash course every day and sort of like
Mm,
how to um, be in relation to another human being. And these early days of dating, for those listening, if you are in that stage, it's scary. It can be
yeah.
really scary, and standing up for what you want is not always easy, but it's going to come up anyway, is what I always like to tell people. Whoever you are, whatever you look like without your makeup, without your extensions, it's going to come out anyway, right?
Yeah. And having these conversations actually in the long run will make you less anxious because otherwise, like, you're
Mm,
just filling in the blanks in your head, and you're always going to have that underlying, even if you feel like you're going with the flow and things are going well, you're going to have that underlying subconscious thing of like, oh, I wonder how he does feel about XYZ. And it's like, if you bring it up and talk about it, then you'll feel less anxious. And if you're aligned, then you can just like have more fun and enjoy things and go with the flow while also knowing that you're having these important conversations.
yes, and that reminds me, another green flag I was going to say that we overlook is your nervous system being regulated. You know,
Yes.
like that is a green flag. I used to think,
Mm-hmm.
like, I hate to use the B word, but I was like, I used to think that was boring. I was like, well, he's just like calling and texting me back. Okay. But
Yes.
it's like, yes, because he likes you, Drea. Hello.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I used to think
Right.
that was so boring too. And like, I talk to so many people every day who are asking me questions, and they're like saying the same thing. Like, oh yeah, he's like great, but I'm just like, I'm looking for somebody who's like a little bit more exciting, or like I like this
I
other person, and then I
know.
hear all about the other person. I'm like, well, this other person is just like giving you like kind of like
Stress.
yeah, exactly. So
If
sometimes
only,
boring, like, and boring doesn't have to be like boring. You know what I mean? Like, I think sometimes we
yeah.
mistake feeling secure and safe as boring, but it's not. There can still be excitement in a relationship when you're feeling safe and secure, but there just isn't that anxiety that you have in like the up and down relationship.
Yeah, and you got to give yourself a little grace because recognizing that new pathway in a relationship it's different. It's like walking into a house you don't like, oh, I don't know where anything. This is different.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? You give yourself some time to walk around in there before you're like, no, no, I don't like this. I'm leaving. This is
right.
too different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, Carleigh, thank you so much for being here with us today and giving us all these amazing nuggets. The last thing I always ask my guests, do you want to leave us with anything before you go? Any nuggets around the conversation that we've had today for my listeners?
The one thing I'd say is just always bringing it back to communication. And I think that that's the number one tool that every couple could use in a relationship. And again, it's something that it's a muscle that you have to strengthen, and it's something that you can start building from the very start. And that can just be through having like better conversations and then asking the important questions, sharing how you're feeling, not being afraid of rejection. And then that's something that you could continue, or you should continue building throughout the entire relationship. So a lot of these conversations that I always recommend couples have on early dates, I also recommend you have them before you move in and before you get engaged and before you get married, because people are constantly changing and evolving. So it's not like a checklist one and done conversation. Just continue communication, and that's going to set you up to have the best relationship that you can with somebody.
Ooh, snaps to you. I love that. A muscle that you have to keep working on. It's like you don't go to the gym one day and get like, the best glutes in the world. You have to work on it.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Carleigh. I've appreciated you, and we will have you back for round 2.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you follow Carleigh Ferrante at Mostly Dating Podcast and on Instagram. I appreciate you guys. Before you go, make sure you hit that like, follow, subscribe, and comment down below. And don't forget, this is the place for the Hot Mess Expresses. Until next time, I'm Drea Renee, and this is Hey Babe, Can We Talk? Bye.